Briahna, what's on your radar?
Well, I'll tell you what, Robbie. Democrats did exactly one thing right. They made sure to fight for closed primaries, and it's a good thing they did, because if Democratic voters weren't faced with the prospect of full disenfranchisement right now if they were to defect, I'm not sure how many would still be registered as Democrats come fall. Of course, Democrats have always fought harder and more efficiently to marginalize the left and block any pathway to a competitive third party than they have against the Republican Party. Leftists hardened in the Bernie wars of 2016 and 2020 know this better than anyone. You almost have to admire the dexterity with which Democrats mobilized 501c3s with deep ties to the Democratic Party to paint Bernie Sanders as a racist and sexist, while corporate rags like The Economist published anti-Semitic caricatures and MSNBC tried to russiagate him during the mainstream media panic following Bernie's big Nevada win. When states actually manage to pass ranked choice voting by ballot initiative, the Democrats can be counted on to swoop in and undo the democratic process, as they did in New York and Maine and elsewhere. And who can blame them? Ranked choice voting, of course, means that if a vote is split between two progressive candidates, the second place candidate doesn't spoil it for the first. Voters can rank the other progressive as their number two, and votes will simply accrue to their second place choice if they best the number one seat. And without the threat that voting for a third party would hurt the Democrats and throw elections to Republicans, it would be hard to convince many registered Democrats not to opt for, say, the Green Party, which is anti-war, anti-interventionist, pro-worker, and not completely captured by corporations. When the Democrats aren't fighting hard against pro-democracy measures like ranked choice voting, they're raising corporate funds in the form of shady super PACs and attacking progressive candidates who have the audacity to actually run to the left of the Democratic Party platform. See, for example, Nina Turner's race in Ohio and Bakari Sellers' new super PAC targeting Rashida Tlaib's seat in Michigan. By the way, the rationale given for spending $1 million on unseating a beloved progressive while the Democratic Party faces a constitutional crisis and mass party defections? Rashida Tlaib isn't black. That's what they're really saying. The real reason that she defends Palestinian rights, and Sellers is a close ally of pro-Israel groups like American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It wouldn't be a Democratic Party without imperialism being dressed up as identity politics. Now, I won't continue to regale you with evidence that Democrats hate the left more than they hate Republicans. You've seen them embrace Liz Cheney for president and give Bush's spokeswoman a cushy MSNBC gig, all while blacklisting leftists from their networks and likening Bernie Sanders, of all people, to Hitler. And you might already have heard that Democrats are waging a campaign to get Green Party candidate Matthew Hoh kicked off the ballot in North Carolina for the crime of, I guess, showing up the Democrats with real progressive bona fides. The point is, the Democrats are actually very effective fighters when they're focused, which makes their complete ineptitude in the context of the Dobbs decision, overturning Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, that much more pathetic. Many liberals who saw themselves as staunch defenders of the party against incursions from the left are now sounding a lot like the Bernie bros of yore, righteously angry that the party they gave money to, canvassed for, and ultimately won the White House, the House, and the Senate has little more to say in the wake of Roe v. Wade than go vote. Democratic leadership is pushing the idea that if you just go out and vote, and if Democrats just win 2 more Senate seats, they can codify Roe, make it law. But many are pointing out that Barack Obama had a supermajority, ran on codifying Roe, and still declined to do so. Watch this flip-flop.
Well, the first thing I do as president is sign the Freedom of Choice Act. That's the first thing that I... Now, the Freedom of Choice Act is not my highest legislative priority.
Whoops. Thought we forgot about that one. The just vote claim is especially suspect given that the administration is still reluctant to commit to ending the filibuster, even if it got the votes. Listen to Kamala Harris dodge the question.
Biden told my colleague Anderson Cooper he would be okay with eliminating the filibuster to pass voting rights and, quote, maybe more. Would you support eliminating the filibuster in order to pass federal legislation for abortion rights?
Right now, given the current composition of the Senate, the votes aren't there.
But
and
would
so
you
that's
use the bully
what
pulpit to say, yes, I support it?
Well, here's the thing. I understand why you're asking the question, but the reality of it is we don't even get to really answer that in terms of whether it happens or not if we don't have the numbers in the Senate. And again, that's why I keep coming back to the importance of an election that is only 130 odd days away, because it really does matter. I sit as the vice president there for the president of the Senate. I was in the Senate for 4 years representing the state of California. And if you don't have the votes, you can't move anything. We've seen countless examples, sadly, of that. This Senate, in the current composition, would not pass voting rights legislation.
Geez, Louise, the question is, if you get the votes, do you support ending the filibuster? No straight answer. I mean, do Democrats really think they're going to get a filibuster-proof majority? Or do they think voters are so stupid as to think that Democrats will do now what they wouldn't do with 60 votes? Even those Democrats who are sympathetic to how difficult it is to codify Roe are confused by the party's unwillingness to engage with any of the smaller measures they could pursue in this moment. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez immediately tweeted out a list of possible legislative responses, which included expanding the court, restraining judicial review, codifying the right to contraceptives, gay marriage and interracial marriage, and opening clinics on federal lands. But as quickly as she came up with good ideas, the corporate Dems started shooting them down. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said yesterday that using federal lands for abortion services would have dangerous ramifications. Wait until she hears how dangerous ectopic pregnancies can be. And in that same disastrous interview, Kamala Harris let slip that the real reason the administration won't pursue this option is that they're worried doing so will hurt Democrats' electoral chances in those states during midterms.
Every statement that the Attorney General has made.
Can the administration expand abortion access or abortion services on federal land, meaning provide the access on federal land that might be in and around states that ban abortion?
I think that what is most important right now is that we ensure that the restrictions that the states are trying to put up that would prohibit a woman from exercising what we still maintain is her right, that we do everything we can to empower women to not only seek but to receive the care where it is available.
Is federal land one of those options?
I mean, it's not right now what we are discussing, but I will say that when I think about what is happening in terms of the states, we have to also recognize, Dana, that we are 130 odd days away from an election, which is going to include Senate races, right? Part of the issue here is that the court has acted, now Congress needs to act. But we, if you count the votes, don't appear to have the votes in the Senate. Well, there's an election happening in 130 odd days. I'm taking, for example, thinking of a Senate race in Georgia or North Carolina. There's the Senate race coming up just in a couple weeks in Colorado. And we need to change the balance and have pro-choice legislators who have the power to make decisions about whether this constitutional right will be in law, right? We say codified, put it in law so that there will be no ambiguity about it.
Look, I don't want to violate HIPAA, but is she literally allergic to answering a question straight? Reuters reported yesterday that the White House is unlikely to meet bold Democrat demands after abortion ruling because they are, quote, concerned that more radical moves would be politically polarizing ahead of November's midterm elections, undermine public trust in institutions like the Supreme Court, or lack strong legal footing. How much legal footing did Mitch McConnell have while blocking Obama's last Supreme Court appointment? Why on earth are you worried about public trust in the Supreme Court when it's already at 25%, down from a not stellar 36% because of what you've been doing already? You think more of nothing is going to help? Look, this is the paradox of the Democratic Party. It wants to fundraise off of issues that it says are of existential importance. At the same time, it claims these are existential issues. The Democratic Party behaves in a way that sends the following message. Those existential issues aren't quite as important as the off chance of picking up a congressional seat. The consequence of this double talk is that Democratic voters are constantly being gaslit. They're tired of this abusive relationship, and it looks like they're finally ready to break up. Hell, the House leader Nancy Pelosi, was literally fundraising for an anti-choice candidate last month, at the same time Roe was on the chopping block. Will the Democratic corporate media even ask her about this, even once? You know it's bad when even the Republicans are surprised the Democrats aren't doing more. In hindsight, it looks like the Dobbs abortion decision was leaked in May as a trial balloon intended to release some Democratic anger before the real thing dropped. But who knew Dems would still be caught so flat-footed, even with advance notice? According to Julia Ioffe, writing in Puck magazine, we're also shocked at how little the Democrats were doing to fight them when such a clear path of retaliation lay open to them while they controlled the House and the Senate, said a Republican. If I were the libs, I would be putting forward a flurry of legislation, like making birth control free and widely available, a GOP aide told her for this article. If you say it's not widely enough available, go after that, cover the gaps. Don't just go for the really big stuff, just split the GOP conference as much as you can. Force people to vote. If the goal is really protecting women or advancing legislation that could actually pass, then take every potential approach you can. In other words, the author wrote, Republicans are saying that Democrats should be forcing them onto the record with votes that chip away at their stated pro-life position. If you're so worried about infant life, in other words, let's have a vote on free diapers and free childcare. If you say it's not a gun issue but a mental health issue, let's vote on funding the shit out of mental health. You heard them, folks. Force the vote. But Democrats, and even part of the cynical establishment checked out left, just aren't on board with doing, well, anything, it seems. Democrats have been trained to expect very little and to get even less. We may fill the streets with protesters, but without disrupting traffic, i.e., disrupting capital, the way the Canadian truckers did, protests don't get you very far. Still waiting on that George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, by the way, Biden. I recently interviewed Jill Stein's VP, Ajamu Baraka, who lives in Colombia, and a Latin American expert, Ben Norton, about how Colombia's left managed not to just secure a huge electoral win and the victory of President-elect Petro, but also VP Francia Marquez, who is to his left and is a working-class Afro-Latino environmental activist. How did they do it? Well, the answer? Movements in Colombia are so powerful, the politicians have to defer to them, not the other way around. Politicians there don't win endorsements on the basis of them being the lesser of two evils. Politicians are pulled away from the evils of corporatism toward the people-based agenda of the movement organizations, because otherwise they won't get their votes. That's a lesson I hope the Democrats learn in this moment. Democrats once emblazoned t-shirts with "Vote or Die." But it's the Democratic Party that's on the brink of death. The new motto should be "Win my vote or die." After all, a party needs voters. But for voters, there's always the Green Party. So, Robbie, I'm feeling very strongly like a lot of Democrats are so frustrated that this could be an opportunity for a third party to emerge if they can get organized. The Green Party is the most established in terms of having ballot access around the country. 4 new parties. Obviously, Andrew Yang is working on the Forward Party. There was the Movement for the People's Party. There are options. But I'm feeling like this is a real turning point and a potential realignment for Democrats, the way the Republican Party saw when the Tea Party started flexing their muscle and showing that they were willing to withhold their votes for candidates that did not attend to their interests as a group.
Well, I'm always hopeful that third parties will do better and become more of a competitive force in American politics. I don't agree with, I'm sure, a lot of what the Green Party stands for. I wish them the best of luck. I think we would have a healthier democracy if third parties like the Green Party, like Andrew Yang's party, my own party is the Libertarian Party, obviously, and I want them to do better because we need to break the stranglehold that the two-party duopoly has on our system. Democrats feel no need, you're right, to cater to their voters to win them over because they think that, well, their voters don't have anywhere else to go, so they can do whatever they want. And I think Republicans have maybe just recently realized, after a kind of a lull in caring very much what voters think, that they actually, maybe Republican voters put up with less at this point than Democratic voters, which is a kind of odd indictment of what's going on. But right now, the Republican Party is giving its most conservative voters exactly what they've wanted, and Democrats have no response to that, which is a very curious place that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, a little bit more fair to Democrats, I think the argument that's made about why Democratic voters are more beholden to the whole vote blue no matter who thing is because from a left perspective, Democrats are working to be more expansive about rights. I know that, conservatives feel differently, especially when it comes to the Second Amendment. But generally speaking, Democrats have the feeling that if they let a Republican in office, then you're going to get benefits cut. You're going to have, Roe overturned. You're going to have real intrusions into your personal life. Whereas Republicans, depending on how committed they are to the idea of small government, might not feel like it is as disastrous to their lifestyle or their beliefs if, say, oh no, we didn't vote for a Republican and Democrats in office. So, I guess I got a healthcare expansion. You know what I mean? Like that's the way that Democrats and elected officials often frame this. Oh, we can't sit this one out. Every election is the most important election of our lives. But what we're seeing now is that there's a limit to how much that kind of fear mongering can go, especially when you see something like Roe, which has been used as a bully stick to get people to vote blue no matter who for so many years, actually get overturned, and to see the Democratic response to it be so feckless. At some point, people are asking, well, what is the point of you?
Yeah, no. Solid points, as always, and we will continue this discussion soon, and we'll have more Rising right after this.